Welcome, everyone, to our event today, Jewish-Muslim Solidarity, Moral Witness in Pressing Times. My name is Maggie Siddiqui. I am Senior Advisor at the Interfaith Alliance, as well as Non-Resident Fellow at the Muslim Public Affairs Council. Thank you so much for being here today. Today's event is co-sponsored by the Jewish Council for Public Affairs, Muslim Public Affairs Council, and Interfaith Alliance, and Union Theological Seminary. This is actually part two of a series that was initiated by Union Theological Seminary called Faithful Advocacy, Moral Witness in Pressing Times that featured Senators Warnock and Coons. The past 2 years have been particularly painful for Muslim and Jewish communities as we have borne witness to the traumatic events in Israel-Palestine and endured rising hate against Jewish, Muslim, and Arab communities here at home. We bear witness to this pain today in one another's communities, and we affirm our commitment to remain in relationship with one another. And yet we know that there are those who have seen our pain as an opportunity, one to be exploited, to further sow divides within and between our communities. The Trump administration in this year has engaged in Islamophobic rhetoric and anti-Arab hate, scapegoating Muslim communities for political gain. And it has exploited fears of real and rising anti-Semitism to justify authoritarian policies, scapegoating Jewish communities. And today we are here to say no more. Today, as Jews, Muslims, people of all faiths and backgrounds, we join together to reaffirm the message that neither our communities nor our democracy are safe when either community can be targeted. And I'm so pleased today that we will have keynotes from a Muslim member of Congress and a Jewish member of Congress, as well as a discussion between a Muslim national leader and a national Jewish leader about what this solidarity looks like, why this is such an essential strategy to protect American democracy. So in addition to our co-sponsoring organizations, I just want to acknowledge so many of the folks here in person. I'm looking around and I'm seeing so many of you who've been incredible partners in Jewish-Muslim solidarity. I am going to fail to acknowledge all of you, so please forgive me. But just in particular conversation with us around Jewish-Muslim solidarity and democracy in this moment, we have seen Islamic Relief USA, Nexus Fund, Shoulder to Shoulder, National Council for Jewish Women, the Religious Action Center for Reform Judaism, Jews and Muslims Advancing Together, HIAS. There's so many others that I'm forgetting you, so forgive me for that. Thank you all for being here in person today, and thank you to our members of Congress and staff of members of Congress for joining us as well. Before I introduce Congresswoman Lateefah Simon, I want to turn it over just a couple of minutes to Salama Mariati, who leads the Muslim Public Affairs Council, to offer a couple of minutes reflecting on the tragedy that occurred in Australia over this past weekend.
Thank you very much, Maggie. Assalamu alaikum, peace be unto you. The first pillar of Islam is bearing witness, and I think it's very appropriate that our forum here has that title in it. And as we all witnessed the horrific tragedy in Sydney over the weekend, at a time when Jews were celebrating Hanukkah, the celebration of light, as some are hidden in darkness, Hanukkah gives us that light. And we saw the anti-Semitic terrorist attack on people who were doing nothing more than practicing their faith, commemorating what is sacred to them. And so we just wanted to emphasize, as have been stated by several Muslim organizations, and I believe the Muslim peoples, how horrific it was to us, as it should be to any human being. And we stand in solidarity with the Jewish community in this time of danger and this time of horror, that we will not tolerate any act like that, especially if anybody gives any sense that this is done in the name of our faith. So this is a time to stand tall. This is a time to stand together. This is a time to stand for the theology of life, against the cult of death. And it really is represented and demonstrated and embodied by one man named Ahmed, who took his life, who was there and took on danger to stand up against that cult of death. And as both the Quran and the Talmud have told us, the one who kills a human being, it's as if he has killed all of humanity. And the one who saves a human being, it's as if he has saved all of humanity. So we are on the side of saving lives. We are on the side of giving precious life air to breathe and giving that theology space in our houses of worship, here in the public space, and especially in our homes. So we just wanted to express that solidarity with the Jewish community today in standing against anti-Semitism, and also saying that we are all human and we should stand for what is being human, most importantly, the freedom to express oneself and the freedom to worship as any person wants to worship. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Salam, and thank you for that preview of the panel discussion that we will turn to in a few moments between you and Amy Spitalnik of JCPA. It is now my honor to introduce Congresswoman Lateefah Simon, who proudly represents California's 12th Congressional District. She has over 3 decades of experience in organizing, advocacy, and philanthropy. She has deep roots as a Bay Area leader and activist. Congresswoman Simon is focused on addressing the housing affordability crisis, tackling the mental health and homelessness epidemic, lowering everyday costs for working families, building climate resilience, protecting women's rights, standing up for immigrants, communities, and so much more. She serves as Deputy Whip for Policy, a Vice Chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. She's a member of the Congressional Black Caucus, Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus, and Democratic Women's Caucus. And her personal experiences as a single mother, a disability advocate, and longtime community leader continue to inform her work, ensuring a focus on justice and equity. She is also Muslim and a mother of 2, and we are so proud to be able to welcome you today. Thank you, Congresswoman Simon.
Assalamu alaikum and shalom. Well, this is a room that I never thought I would actually see in the Capitol, and it's really a blessing and an honor to be here. This is my first year in Congress, so clearly I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot also being here today. It's a reminder of what is possible. So I really want to thank MPAC and JCPA for gathering us here together. I mean, we should be doing this every day. Every day, really being committed to the words of our intersectional face. So I'm not going to speak for long today because I am so humbled, and I just wanted to give a bit of space up here to share my deep and profound gratitude, but also to make clear and to make claim that we all came in today with profoundly heavy hearts. What we all witnessed through our TV screens, through the phone calls we received from Sydney, Australia, I think we've all mourned deeply. And that mourning is epigenetic, right? It's not just the beautiful souls that were slaughtered just a few days ago. The mourning comes from what we know all too well, is the courage that it takes every single day, being a Jew in this country and abroad, being a Muslim in this country and abroad, to be in our face unapologetically. The lives in Australia and the lives across the world in the mutual conflicts that we're all praying for every single day to end, those lives are taken because of faith and actions of a very few have condemned millions. And as a Muslim member of Congress, the first Muslim member from California, I am thinking about my time here as someone who grew up in the Bay Area. And I gotta say, in the Bay Area, I studied Torah, Quran, and the Bible. Literally, I went to a Jewish day school. I had a profoundly deep and loving Muslim family and a Christian grandmother who could pray the devil back to hell, and she did every single day. It's very Bay Area. But I want to say this plainly, sisters and brothers. While I am in Congress, I want you to know just a couple of things about me. All of our faiths, under the umbrella of Abraham, peace be upon him, tells us to reject violence and hate. You will always see me condemning war, whether that war is in Yemen, whether the bodies that lay on the ground right now in Sudan are without prayer, or we're praying for a continued peace in our holy land. I will always denounce bombs over full bellies. That's not Islamophobic, it is not anti-Semitic, it is love. It is love. Violence born out of fear is betrayal to God. And I'm asking myself every single day as we're hearing the yucky stuff that continues to come out of our phones and on our TVs, that we remember that violence that is born out of fear is a betrayal of our faith, that Judaism and Islam, we know this, our faiths come from the same shared desert story. We are the descendants of Abraham, not simply by blood, but by obligation. That lineage binds us to the hard work, the very difficult work, the painful work, the prayerful work of restraint and justice and love and care for human life, even those lives that have betrayed us. The Torah tells us that we must seek peace and we must pursue it. We must seek peace and pursue it, not wait for it, not wish for it, but chase it, even when it costs us the benevolence, the comfort. Quran reminds us that humanity was made diverse so that we might know each other. My Arabic teacher taught me that surah when I was about 6 years old. She made us repeat it in Quran class. Our humanity was made diverse so that we might know one another. Difference is not a wound, it is in fact a responsibility. And it teaches that, the brother just said it, so I'm gonna repeat it. And it teaches that to take one innocent life, regardless of the faith, the practice, or the sin, is a wound to all of humanity. It is a wound to all humanity. Those lives in Sydney, those lives downtown Washington, D.C., lives taken all over the world, a bruise to humanity. To save one life is to repair our beautiful and battered world. This, for Jews and Muslims, we know, and as gatherers, we know that we have to remind ourselves and our brethren that that is our sacred, moral, shared ground. Rejecting anti-Semitism alone is not enough. It's just not enough. Rejecting Islamophobia alone is just not enough. We have to consistently practice, which is in our faith, to reject the false story that safety can be built on another's erasure. We're family. Family who shares land, who shares a father, a God. Our communities are safer when we agree that literally, like we're doing here in this space, we stand shoulder to shoulder and lock arm in arm, and that might sound cheeky, but imagine if we commanded that, particularly of our brothers and sisters in times of war and times of deep strife. We've commanded ourselves to stand literally glued to one another, while together we guard our houses of worship, while together Imagine a world where we lifted each other up as we're doing right now in our own grief. That's centuries times 10 old grief, particularly when the anger settles in. I'll say it again, as descendants of Abraham, we inherit this very uncomfortable but beautiful and sacred, demanding call that we choose life. Chaim, that we choose to protect all that are vulnerable, all that are vulnerable, and to refuse the easy language, because it's easy, the easy language of hate, the lazy comfort of silence, the lazy comfort of silence. That when any of our people bear the consequences of horrific and immoral leadership, that our sin is the lazy comfort of violence. Brothers and sisters, I'm so thankful and honored to just share words with you, words you already know. The fact that you all committed yourself to this harmony, this beloved community that our God and the angels command of us. I'm so thankful that in my newness in this house, I know that I have people and that I have friends. It is Hanukkah. And those of us who understand this holiday, we know that we look to the light even when it feels dreary, even when it is dim. And if it burns, there's another candle to light the next night. That is our organizing strategy. That is our love. That is our faith. That is our collective promise to our God. Thank you all so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman Simon, for those remarks. We are looking forward to Congressman Jamie Raskin joining us later in today's event. But next up, we will have a panel discussion moderated by the Reverend Frederick Davey of Union Theological Seminary. This is an event that is truly interfaith. It is an expression of Jewish-Muslim solidarity, and we are delighted to do it together with people of all faiths and backgrounds. The Reverend Frederick Davey is Senior Executive Vice President for Public Theology and Civic Engagement at Union Theological Seminary, where he has served in senior leadership for over a decade. His current role is central to the seminary's mission of addressing the most pressing social, cultural, and theological issues of our time. He leads the seminary's efforts in public theology, strengthening its role as a vital voice in public discourse and expanding its influence through meaningful community engagement both locally and globally. He has a very long bio, and I will not read you all of it, but he has advised everyone from Oprah to multiple U.S. presidents and vice presidents. He's formerly the vice chair of the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. He has extensive experience in senior level roles in philanthropic and social and economic justice organizations, served in leadership roles for the city of New York. He's a Presbyterian minister and also serves as the co-chair of the Interfaith Center of New York, which recently became an affiliate of Interfaith Alliance, which we're thrilled about. Thank you so much, Fred, for being with us today. I'll turn it over to you to lead our panel discussion.
Thank you, Maggie. I think the reason I have a long bio is because I'm old and I couldn't keep a job. So I kept moving around a lot, a moving target. Let me just say that Union Theological Seminary in New York City has 2 centuries of being involved with faith and religion in the public square. And that sponsoring this event and the event that preceded it earlier this year is at the heart of what we do as a seminary. We not only train and educate people to be leaders in an interfaith and interreligious context, such as the CEO of the Interfaith Alliance, Paul Rauschenbusch, a friend and colleague here. But we also encourage dialogue between and among faith traditions, as well as those faith traditions collectively engaging in public discussions and public policy. And so what we do here today is very much at the heart of who we are as a seminary. And I'm honored to have been asked to join and support this conversation this morning. And we can say it 1,000 times, but it couldn't be more timely than it is now. It's also my honor to introduce people who actually probably need no introduction to most of us. They are known well, both here and around the world. But let me introduce Salam al-Marwayati, who is nationally recognized for his commitment to improving the public understanding of Islam and policies impacting American Muslims. Salam is president and co-founder of the Muslim Public Affairs Council. He oversees MPAC's groundbreaking civic engagement, public policy, and advocacy work. He is an expert on Islam in the West, Muslim reform movements, human rights, democracy, national security, Middle East politics. He has spoken at the White House, Capitol Hill, and has represented the U.S. government at international human rights and religious freedom conferences. His writings have appeared in every major news publication, and over the years, his interviews have been featured in international and national outlets. So I present to you Salam al-Marwayati. I'll now also introduce our second guest, Amy Spotalnik. Sorry, Amy. And also no stranger to us, if I can find your bio here. Here we are. Amy Spotalnik is the CEO of the Jewish Council for Public Affairs, the national convener of Jewish coalitions working across communities to build a just and inclusive American democracy. A nationally recognized leader on countering anti-Semitism, hate, and extremism, and protecting democracy. Amy previously served as executive director of Integrity First for America, which won its groundbreaking lawsuit against the neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and hate groups responsible for the Charlottesville violence. Amy has extensive experience in government, politics, and advocacy, including as the communications director and senior policy advisor to the New York Attorney General and spokesperson and advisor to the New York City mayor. She serves on the board of directors of the Leadership Conference of Civil Rights, Tufts University, Hillel, and the Polarization and Extremism Research and Innovation Lab at American University, as well as on Tree of Life's Academic Advisory Council and Bedrock's National Leadership Council. And then what do you do with your free time?
3-year-old.
Amy frequently appears also on the national media and has been awarded various fellowships, honors, including named Women in Power Fellow in the at the 92nd Street Y, a Truman National Security Project Fellow, and a City and State Under 40 Rising Star. So Amy will be the first to speak to us, and then I'll see, Salam, if you want to respond to what Amy has said, and then I have a series of questions that we'll ask until we get the hook to move to the next phase, or until our distinguished other keynote speaker, Mr. Raskin, joins us. All right, so Amy.
Thank you so much, Fred. And this room is just really meaningful to be in right now after not only the last few days, but I think, frankly, the last few years and the last decade. None of this is happening in a silo. The horrors of this past weekend, which certainly include what happened in Australia, but a variety of other acts of horrific violence as well here at home, only underscore just how urgent it is for us to be building spaces like this, and how, as I think the Congresswoman said, we're just not doing it nearly enough. And so I'm particularly grateful to Islam and MPAC and the whole team, to Union, to Interfaith Alliance, and Maggie and Paul, and so many of our partners here who have just really leaned into this work at a time when so many people are trying to make it impossible to do so. Not even so many, just the loudest voices, I would say. And I'm so grateful for the partnership that this room illustrates, that has given me a lot of hope over the last few years, and I hope is just a sign of what we can continue to build. Like it's as Salam said so beautifully, it's hard not to feel the pain of a holiday that is about bringing light into darkness, of fighting oppression, being exploited by extreme violent actors to further terrorize a community that has already seen unprecedented amounts of violence in recent years, and to make it feel like we can't show up and proudly celebrate our faith or our identities without risk of violence, which is clearly the goal of the terrorism that we've seen, not just in Sydney, but here in the United States and around the globe for the last decade, from just a few months ago here in DC at the Capitol Jewish Museum, or in Boulder, Colorado, or at Governor Josh Shapiro's home, or in Charlottesville and Pittsburgh and Poway, or in so many other cases where anti-Semitic, xenophobic, racist hate has been used to target not just Jews, but the Black community, Latino community, the Muslim community, and others. And what these acts of violence should remind us of is that when any community is unsafe, we're each unsafe. And so too, when Jews are targeted, every community is made unsafe. And we're in this feedback loop right now, where these increasingly normalized conspiracy theories and tropes across the ideological spectrum are being used to drive a wedge between communities, and, as has already been said, been exploited by some of the worst actors at a time when we need to be building the strongest possible coalitions to counter hate and protect democracy. And so I'm sure we'll unpack in the coming 30, 40 minutes exactly what this is all looking like, exactly what we can do at a time when I think these loudest voices are seeking to exploit and weaponize rather than actually advance the comprehensive whole of government, whole of society policies we need to keep Jewish, Muslim, and all communities safe. But the truth is we're not powerless, and this room reminds me that we're not powerless. And so I'm really much looking forward to this conversation, to digging in about on the actual solutions, and to continuing to build the sorts of solidarity and coalitions we need in this moment that frankly have never felt more urgent in my lifetime.
Thank you. Salam, do you want to have any more comments?
Yeah, I think just 2 points to add to. I think Amy said pretty much everything, and I agree with her 100%. I think number one, I think what our concern is how faith sometimes is used as an instrument of fear and terror. And that's when faith abandons ethics and goes into dogma, and abandons universality and goes into tribalism. And I think that's across the spectrum. So as people of faith, as organizations based on principles of faith, I think that is our special role in at least contributing intellectually and socially to counter that force of exploiting faith for violence. That's number one. And number two, the members in this room, our organizations, we, as Amy said, this didn't just happen because we wanted to meet today. It happened from a series of meetings for, I think it's been over a year, and we've had differences. And the reason why we need to come together is because of those differences. This idea that you only come together with people you agree, that doesn't even work in the family. Definitely not with my wife, at least. That's what my wife tells me. So the idea that I will only talk to you if you come to my terms, on my terms, and concur with what I have to say, that doesn't happen in real life, and somehow that's become the political nomenclature or the political culture that we too often see. So we need to push back against this idea that somehow we have to fall in line with one narrative from the top. And so the role of civil society, therefore, becomes that much more important, and the work that we're doing is that much more critical.
Thank you so much. So a number of people that I've talked to have often referred to the U.S. as being maybe the world's largest and perhaps even first religiously diverse democracy. And it seems that when we are at loggerheads around issues of religion, usually driven by extremism, democracy is seriously threatened. And as you've both mentioned, particularly when religious positions are exploited by political opportunists and others. So the question is, if we take seriously the idea that our communities thrive only within inclusive democracies or democracy, what are the public policies on such things as immigration, civil rights, hate violence prevention, or religious freedom that would meaningfully advance safety for the Jewish community, the Muslim community, and other marginalized communities, and sustain an inclusive democracy that I think we all so desperately want?
So I think to answer the question about what do we do about this, right, we actually have to understand what the this is, right? In this moment, we're hearing terms like anti-Semitism and Islamophobia used quite frequently, and I would argue that the vast majority of Americans probably don't even know what these terms mean, and that's part of the challenge. I can speak to what anti-Semitism looks like right now, and specifically the ways in which the policies that will ultimately counteract this rising and increasingly normalized anti-Semitism are in so many ways one and the same with the policies that will counteract the rising and increasingly normalized Islamophobia, anti-Arab hate, and other forms of bigotry. At its core, of course, anti-Semitism is like so many forms of prejudice, hating Jews because of who we are, what we look like, or how we pray or don't pray, or what we eat or don't eat. But anti-Semitism also uniquely operates as this insidious, pernicious conspiracy theory rooted in tropes and lies around Jewish control and power. And that's what makes it such a salient wedge across the ideological spectrum. It's intended to sow distrust and pit communities against one another. It's intended to help make people think that our institutions are working for some shadowy, powerful cabal rather than for the people that they're supposed to work for. And so, as you mentioned, I spent a number of years working on holding accountable those responsible for the Charlottesville violence. Nazis chanting, "Jews will not replace us." At the time, 8+ years ago, many of us were confused by what that meant. I think we now know very clearly what they meant. This idea of invasion and replacement rhetoric seeking to argue that Jews are changing the demographics of this country, supporting immigrants and refugees coming in, supporting changes to our electorate. And I would say, ironically, just yesterday we heard from our vice president that this very form of anti-Semitic hate that has led to the violence in Charlottesville and Pittsburgh and Poway and elsewhere, he is now arguing is somehow the solution to anti-Semitism. He has argued that the solution to anti-Semitism is to stop immigration and the changes that immigrants are bringing to this country, when in fact we know it's that very argument that has been at the core of so much of the anti-Semitic and broader hate and violence that we've seen over the last few years. And so we see how invasion replacement rhetoric has become normalized, has fueled a cycle of violence targeting Jews and others, and is now underpinning a lot of the very policies that make all of us less safe, whether they're draconian immigration policies, attacks on voting and other core civil rights and liberties, or so much more. I think in the last few years, it might be harder for some to understand how some of these same conspiracy theories can manifest on the other end of the political spectrum, including around tropes and conspiracies related to, quote, Jewish or Zionist control or power. And we've seen how this has manifested not just in Jews being targeted here. My own synagogue in the aftermath of October 7th targeted with graffiti and vandalism, Jews being ostracized or marginalized or kicked out of certain spaces because of their perceived connection to Israel. But of course, in the last year especially, increasingly violent attacks targeting Jews under the guise of protesting Israeli policy. Governor Josh Shapiro, Boulder, and Capitol Jewish Museum being the three most obvious here. And I want to particularly note that the really powerful statements that MPAC put out in each and every one of those cases that were so deeply meaningful for me and I think for many in the Jewish community. And so we're seeing this increasingly normalized hate and extremism, how it's being used not just to target Jews, but to fundamentally undermine the inclusive democracy that is so inherent to all of our safety. And we're also being offered false choices. On the right, we're being offered this false choice by the administration and others that the only way to keep Jews safe is to undermine our democratic norms, to gut academic freedom or research, civil liberties and due process, unions, and so much more that has been really inherent to my own family's safety and advancement in this country. I'm the grandkid of Holocaust survivors, and the ways in which democracy here, unions have, and so much more have helped my own family advance is clear. And so we're being offered that false choice by the administration on that side. And on the flip side, we're being told by extreme voices that we can't be proudly Jewish or have a connection to the Jewish homeland while also maintaining small d democratic and humanitarian values or a commitment to Palestinian human rights or Muslim or Arab American rights and dignity. And these are all false choices. Most of us actually are able to hold that complexity. And so the policies that keep us all safe reject these binaries, reject the exploitation and weaponization that we're seeing, and instead invest in building the democratic resiliency we need, whether it is hate crimes prevention, whether it's civil rights protection like Title VI at a time when the administration has decimated the very tools we have to keep Jewish and Muslim and all students safe on campuses, whether it's media and digital literacy or holding social media companies accountable for allowing this hate and extremism to run rampant, or whether it's broader investment in building this resiliency and inoculation to hate at a time when it's being so normalized by the loudest voices. And so the policies that keep Jews safe keep all of us safe, and the policies that keep Muslims safe keep all of us safe. And we need to understand it that way as opposed to treating this hate in silos, because that's exactly what those seeking to pit us against one another want us to do.
And also, I think there are two issues. One is existential, and one is what's happening at the ground level as it relates to American Muslims. The existential issue that we're facing is this idea of who's an American. And does that mean you have to belong to a certain, it's not whether you belong to a certain religion or race that makes you an American. It's if you belong to a certain religion and race, that disqualifies you from being American. So even if you're a citizen, you can get picked up by ICE because of the way you look or the way you worship. There's talks of denaturalization now. And this idea of e pluribus unum, from many we are one, now is reduced to, well, yeah, that's true, but only for this group, not for the rest of us. And I think this is what we have to struggle with as Americans, because to us, the only definition of an American is whether we pledge our allegiance to the United States Constitution. And we do. And if we do, and our parents came here fleeing persecution and made a home here, this is home. Our founder, Dr. Marhatu, really was the architect of the American Muslim identity, which basically was encapsulated in this saying of his that home is not where my grandparents are buried, home is where my grandchildren are going to be raised. And so this is our home, and we are American, and we have to keep reiterating that point and fight for it and struggle for it. So that's one thing. Then on what's happening on the ground now is, in addition to the hate that we face from the mob, just this weekend there was a mob that took a pig to a Muslim community in near Dallas, Texas, because they want to build a new mosque. I felt sorry for the pig. The pig did nothing, but they think that we hate pigs. No, we just don't eat them.
Same.
Yeah, I think it's true for all of us. I mean, we use pigskin for football, so we and there are many values that we have with pigs.
I grew up in the South, and it's a little bit different relationship.
but in addition to that mob mentality, what is happening to American Muslim students, what's happening to many of us, is the unleashing of the national security apparatus against our community. And that's the difference when we talk about anti-Muslim animus compared to hatred in general that is targeting various groups. Is now, not only do you have to deal with the mob, you have to deal with the national security apparatus of the most powerful government in the world, the United States government. And so having discussions about, well, what is real national security? National security was invoked for Japanese American internment. National security is invoked every time we want to go to war, even though they're unjust wars. So when we're dealing with that, and students now are put under certain surveillance, and organizations are designated as foreign terrorist organizations, even though they have a 501c3 status. And this is not going to be the end of it. It will continue. And then you have, I believe it was Representative Fine, who said that there's no such thing as a moderate Muslim, they should all be destroyed. And he said that in the Congress. And so there have been other things that have been said, much less hateful than that, but members of Congress were censured. He should be censured for saying something like that. We would not accept that for any other group, yet he went ahead and said it. So those are some of the practical things that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis when it comes to this notion of, yes, we believe in a diverse America. We believe in e pluribus unum. It is not happening, and we're actually going in the opposite direction. And even in the case of Poway that Amy mentioned, the case of Poway, it was an attack against a Chabad house near San Diego. The same person firebombed the mosque, which was just a few miles down the street. So this threat is really attacking both communities. The Great Replacement conspiracy theory started in France because of Muslim immigrants. And now it has found it's reared its ugly head here in America, attacking Jews, attacking other minority groups, and it's attacking all of us.
And if I can just put a fine point on it, I want to underscore, well, one, just how vile the comments were by Randy Fine, by Tommy Tuberville, and the series of vile Islamophobic comments that we've seen from people who are sitting members of Congress and supposed to be upholding the best ideals of this country and are instead exploiting the very real fear and pain of this moment to advance just outright bigotry and hate. It has no place here, and I think all of us have an obligation to condemn it. And I think so, too, at a moment when there is real and rising anti-Semitism, we know that we can confront it without specifically violating the fundamental rights and targeting the Muslim community or anyone else. And yet we are hearing from the loudest voices that the only way to do so is to target Muslim or Palestinian American or Arab American students on college campuses or otherwise. And in fact, we know that we can effectively and comprehensively counter anti-Semitism without that targeting. And in fact, such targeting actually undermines the fight against anti-Semitism, both because Jews themselves then become scapegoated for the cuts to funding and rights, and also because we know that none of this starts and stops with one person on one college campus or in one community. All of us are made unsafe when any one person is being, or any one community is being targeted. And so again, I think it's incumbent on all of us to understand the ways in which our legitimate fears and pains right now are being exploited and rejected, because that's the only path forward.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you both. So here's a question that isn't on our list, and I hope it's not too far out of left field, Maggie. It seems that the elephant in the room, for at least for me as a Christian, as a Presbyterian minister, is what is the source? And you've talked a little bit about the source of this replacement theory coming out of France, but here in the U.S., all of this is exacerbated actually by a number of forces, but the primary force, it seems to me, is Christian nationalism, and white Christian nationalism in particular. Can you reflect for a minute on sort of how you view white Christian nationalism or Christian nationalism as a force or a power in this effort to exploit tensions, exploit the acts of extremists for the sake of trying to make what many of that mindset perceive as a pure America.
Well, I'll take it more from a theological standpoint, since we're people of faith, from Islam's point of view. You know, there's something in Islam where we're not supposed to draw pictures or paintings of the Prophet Muhammad. And the reason being is that we are not supposed to make him white or black or brown or any color, or take on the image of the painter, him or herself. And so the idea of images, images of God, images of the Prophet, are shunned by the vast majority of Muslims. And so this idea of white Christian nationalism, where somehow Jesus is white, even though he probably looked more like me than he looked like, you know, these guys that are promoting white Christian nationalism is of course false. And it's intended to promote that kind of racism. Number two, there's nothing Christian about white Christian nationalism. Just like there's nothing Islamic about Islamic violent extremism, or nothing Jewish about Jewish extremism. These are political vehicles used for political power and exploiting fear and concerns of the average American, and in this case, white Americans. And I think the way to bypass it is through these forums and direct engagement. And we should be just as concerned about communities in the Midwest as we are about our own communities here in Washington or Los Angeles. And truth will overcome fear. There's a saying in the Quran, evil and good are not equal. Repel evil with that which is good and much better, so that the one with whom there is enmity becomes as if he is your closest and warmest friend. And so the Quran doesn't talk about conversion of people theologically to convert them to the faith. In fact, it tells the prophet, you are not responsible for them. If God had willed, he would have made them all one faith, but it's his will to make them different faiths. So the prophet was even admonished from converting people to the Islamic faith. But instead, the Quran talks about social conversion, that there's something bigger than just our religion, and that God had created these different religions. God is, no one religion owns God. God is not the captain or the chief of my tribe. God is omnipotent. He's the most merciful, and so we have to tackle this issue from a theological standpoint. And then the second point on that issue is that the methods that they used are also very unchristian-like, whereas Jesus, represented love and forgiveness and taking care of the poor and needy. I don't think these white nationalists care about that. It's just the opposite. And when Tommy Tuberville, who claims that Islam is a cult, first of all, Tommy Tuberville, when he ran for Senate, didn't know the difference. They asked him about the three branches of government. I think he said the House, the Senate, and the Supreme Court. So he needs to go back to civics before he can become an Islamic scholar. But it's that kind of ignorance that is being exploited and played up in promoting this notion that Islam is a cult. And I remember, I forgot what year it was exactly, but there was a mosque in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and the city council was trying to say that, Islam is not a religion, and therefore Muslims don't have First Amendment rights. And it took the Justice Department, not this Justice Department, obviously, but it took the Justice Department to go and testify to the city council and say, no, Islam is a religion like every other religion, and therefore you have to afford Muslims their First Amendment rights. If they want to build a mosque, you cannot impede them in doing so. And so that's the seems to be the daily struggle for American Muslims, having to prove that we're a religion, or having to prove that we're human. And when you're up against any kind of nationalism, any form of religious nationalism, it could be Muslim nationalism as well. I think the first point that we have to say, that is not religion. That's a political vehicle to take over power and to divide us, and we all have to speak out against it.
Great, thank you. Amy?
I mean, the only thing I would add there, I wholeheartedly agree, is the ways in which the conspiracy theories and tropes oftentimes at the core of this white Christian nationalism are...
So I'm going to ask you to hold.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. And then we'll pick it up.
Great. No, it's fine.
The man we've been waiting for.
Yes, indeed.
Sorry. So we will definitely turn to Amy next momentarily. We're all paused with bated breath here, but wanted to just welcome. We know Congressman Jamie Raskin is running between hearings and markups and all kinds of things today, and we're so honored that you could join us today. Congressman Jamie Raskin represents Maryland's 8th Congressional District, now serving his 5th term. He's ranking member of the House Committee on the Judiciary, previously served as ranking member on the Oversight Committee. Long story short, he's former professor of constitutional law, and it shows. He is one of the staunchest defenders of religious freedom and democracy in Congress today and in our nation today. We are so honored to have you here. He is also Jewish, and so we are proud to have this Jewish voice. We had Congresswoman Lateefah Simon offering a voice as a Muslim member of Congress earlier. So pleased to have you with us today. Welcome, Congressman Raskin.
Greetings, everybody, and forgive me for interrupting the prior scheduled panel. I'm thrilled, though, to be able to be with everybody and to thank you for convening this event, and to thank Reverend Davey for moderating it. And I do want to salute the groups that are involved here: the JCPA, MPAC, the Interfaith Alliance, and the Union Theological Seminary for your engagement with where we are now. The horrific terrorist events that just took place in Australia remind us that everybody is in danger right now. Everybody is under attack. We're living at a time where all of the darkest, most sinister forces from the last century, racism, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, bigotry, fanaticism, terrorist violence are on the loose again in our century. And we need to be building bridges across every conceivable racial, ethnic, religious, political, ideological, national line to stand up for democracy and freedom and the security of all people. That means that everybody needs to draw on the most positive well springs of hope and connection from within their own faith tradition, within their own political parties, within their own political ideologies, within their own countries, to make common cause with others who would reject this siren call of authoritarianism and fanaticism and violence all over the world. So this union of people from the Jewish faith and the Muslim faith is admirable, and it's one of many such unions and cross-cutting alliances that we need to happen in order to build a very strong, passionate, and irreversible force for humanity against what's taking place out there. So I want to salute you guys for what you've done, and I want to praise everybody who is resisting narrow calls to just be defending their own group, however defined, their own nation, however defined, their own community. In every group, in every religion, in every country, in every government, there is a struggle right now to stand up for the highest values of human civilization. And so I just want to commend you all for being part of that process today. And forgive me for excusing myself, but thanks for
Thank you so much.
Well, I feel in many ways that effectively said much of what I was going to say. So, at the core of white Christian nationalism, much like so much extremism, is this idea that there's only so much of the pie to go around. That for this country to be safe, to be the country that they want it to be, this narrowly defined vision of who an American is, white, Christian, hetero, straight, etc., that we can't. There isn't room for anyone else here, and that is exactly why these conspiracy theories and tropes that are at the core of white Christian nationalism and the broader policies are used to pit communities against one another and make it seem as if this is a zero-sum fight, as if immigrants, Jews, Black people, Muslims, whoever it might be, take away from what's possible in this country rather than add to it. And that's why it's salient beyond Nazis with torches in Charlottesville, but we increasingly see average people become susceptible to some of these ideas because at a time of great tumult and fear and anxiety, they're looking for scapegoats, and this provides that. And at the core, these conspiracy theories are about fundamentally undermining our democracy, using this ability to pit us against one another to undermine our democracy and to advance policies that very much are at the core of this worldview as well, whether they be the sorts of policies Salam was talking about, using the national security apparatus to undermine the rights of Muslim and other communities, whether it is anti-immigrant and refugee policies targeting those who are coming here looking for a better life, whether it's attacking voting rights and civil rights or civil liberties or due process and the rule of law. And so all of this is really used to fundamentally rip apart the fabric of our democracy, the norms and the values that are essential to keeping us safe. And so we have to understand white Christian nationalism and this broader extremism as a tool to undermine democracy rather than a simple idea in and of itself. It really is the vehicle through which our communities are being pitted against one another. These policies and ideas are being normalized and advanced. And again, it's why we need to be providing a different view, a different space that makes clear we're safest in building these strong, inclusive coalitions across lines of difference.
Great, thank you. We're just going to, we have, I think, about 10 minutes for a couple of additional, or maybe one additional question, and then any final comments you all would like to have. Since the horrific events of Australia are very much on our minds, and we often talk about stories and narratives being the sources of the most inspiration to withstand the kinds of attacks and hate that we're seeing that are so prevalent here in the U.S. and around the world. And we see coming out of Australia stories about heroes. You mentioned one in the young Muslim man who subdued one of the attackers at great bodily harm to himself. I have seen another posted of an elderly Jewish couple where the man confronted the terrorist and was actually killed on the bridge. But it's those stories and those narratives of that kind of heroism, kind of efforts to engage humanity as human beings first. And so the question I have is, what kind of narratives inspire you today? What are the stories that you think, the narratives that you think this country needs in order to both withstand the extremists, but also continue to deepen the relationship between these two communities?
Well, I don't know if this is a narrative, but maybe it will elicit other thoughts. But my family's from Iraq. My father passed away 2 months ago, so I went to the funeral service for him. And in Iraq, what's really interesting, they have shrines. There are a lot of Shia shrines in Iraq. And the roads towards the shrines, you have pictures of those people who died fighting ISIS. And it is riveted with hundreds, if not thousands, of people. And then you have, during the war against the Soviets, Afghans who sacrificed their lives to defeat the Soviet Union, and America benefited from that. America benefited from these Iraqis who fought ISIS. And it's those unsung heroes, like the Ahmed. We know who he is now because it was on camera. But there are millions of them throughout the world who we do not talk to, we do not connect with, whether they're here in America or they're abroad. And I think it's our responsibility to recognize them, to honor them, not only because they did wonderful things, but for the common good, for the efforts of achieving peace. That's the only way I see having peace prevail in the region. It is not going to, we're not going to achieve peace by more bombs, by more wars. It will do exactly the opposite. It will create more militias that end up being terrorist groups that will give more fuel to the fire of violent extremism. And they can call themselves whatever, and we'll just have more fear here, and we'll have more draconian policies against innocent people here as an attempt to give people a false sense of security. That we're going after the Muslims so that you can be safe. And nobody feels safe for that. But it is recognizing these millions of people and bringing those stories out to the American public that I believe will alleviate a lot of the fears and misapprehensions that people have. Number two, there was a senator who visited our mosque many years ago, Tom Harkin. Mm-hmm. I know I'm dating myself now.
Not with me.
Yeah, no, we're together in this. So Senator Harkin visited the Islamic Center of Southern California, and at that time it was during the first Gulf War, '91. And again, as war broke out, the government implemented certain policies to start surveillance against communities. And then pundits would go on and talk about how we have to be worried about the Muslim taxi driver more than any terrorist overseas. And it's because of the way they smell or the food they bring and things like that. And Senator Tom Harkin said, they said that about my mother. And Senator Harkin was a son of an immigrant family from Eastern Europe. And his mother was Eastern Orthodox. And they were saying that about her in the 40s and the 50s. And I feel that we talk about diversity, we talk about pluralism, we talk about religious freedom, but we never really achieve that as a society. And now it's supposedly the Muslims' turn to go through what Jews went through 100 years ago, and Catholics, and Mormons, and every other religious minority in America. But we cannot do it alone. I think the stakes are much higher now than they were 100 years ago. And therefore, it is important to have these coalitions that we're building. And the coalitions is not just to serve us as members of faith, but really to serve our country. Because we do believe in an America that is the greatest country in the world, that is that beacon of hope, that is the one that integrates its immigrant communities so that we become a stronger country. And so that's what we're fighting against right now. And first and foremost, by fighting against that ignorance, by developing programs and stories and narratives that counter the paradigm of fear.
Thank you.
I wholeheartedly agree, and I think to this question of where do we find hope right now, I find hope now and historically from those who are willing to put themselves on the line to show up for others at grave risk. And so whether it's those you just described in Iraq who fought ISIS, who stood up and lost their lives as a result. I think right now, today on the Hill, I believe that there is a hearing demonizing Afghan refugees and immigrants,
Right.
those who were supporting American troops, the American mission in Afghanistan, and are now being demonized and effectively kept out of the United States and prevented from accessing the very freedom they were purportedly there to support us in fighting for. I think about my own grandparents. My grandmother would never have survived the Holocaust had it not been for non-Jews who quite literally hid her underneath their porch on top of an oven. And I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for those folks. And I think about the plaintiffs and the others in Charlottesville in the lawsuit that I worked on before this role, where folks like Heather Heyer and so many others, Marcus Martin and Marissa Blair and others, were there standing up against white supremacists and neo-Nazis attacking their town, standing up for the Jewish and Black and other communities that were being targeted by these white supremacists. And in the case of Heather, lost her life. In the case of Marcus and Marissa and so many of others who were plaintiffs in our lawsuit, were grievously injured. But they did so because it was the right thing to do. And I think very proudly, talking to them, wore those injuries as badges of honor, as painful as they were, because of what it meant they stood up for. And so in this moment, it's really easy to become susceptible to those trying to pit us against one another, to suggest that it's easier for us to stay in our silos, that we're going to somehow solve anti-Semitism or Islamophobia or others forms of hate by not talking to those with whom we have disagreements. We're only going to solve these crises by actually talking to those with whom we don't already agree on everything. And that requires us not just to show up and stay at these coalitions and tables, but also to show up and put our own selves on the line in whatever capacity we are able to do so against those who are exploiting this moment, against those who are seeking to threaten our communities, to weaponize fear, and to otherwise advance this extremist agenda. And so if all of the people we've talked about were able to do it in far more dire and deadly circumstances, certainly we can keep coming to the table and keep fighting for the very policies and to reject the sort of extremism and polarization that is so urgent right now.
And with that, I don't think any more needs to be said at this moment. There's clearly a lot to do. And we definitely need to keep having these conversations, as you said, strengthening these coalitions to withstand the adverse winds that are going to continue to come our way and try to divide us. And I, for one, am honored, proud, and humbled by the leadership that you all provide and that others in the nation provide, including our other co-sponsors for this event. And we'll keep looking for ways and opportunities to continue these conversations. No better place to have them, but in the heart of where people are making public policy for America. And that's right here on Capitol Hill. So we'll keep this coalition and others going and continue these conversations. And thank you again for your leadership and your contribution.
Thank you.